Many of our friends and family have been taken away by cancer. Many who survive carry guilt and fear, while many are left confused in what to do when cancer shows up in their door. And that is what our latest episode is about. Stay tuned.
Hi, Kristy. Hi, Sammi. Welcome to the 𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗀𝘁𝘆 podcast.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Yes, we're so excited.
Yes, Kristy has been with us last year to talk about Hashimoto's management, and now she's really expanded and collaborated with other people. And now you're with Sammi, who is a therapist. So congratulations, Kristy, for doing such an amazing job. And then, yeah, I'm so looking forward for this new platform that you're making with Sammi, which is the Oncology Supportive Care and implementation platform. But before that, Kristy, just want to ask, what is oncology and what does it really involve when someone goes to treatment? So Kristy and Sam, you can start.
Yeah. So, oncology is a part of the medical world. When the medical world steps in, when more or less life takes an unexpected turn, and the word cancer becomes part of the conversation. So, oncology's field really focuses on understanding like what's happening in the body, trying to find the best way to treat it, and then also walking alongside people through some of like those really hard and uncertain moments. Oncology isn't necessarily just about treatments like chemotherapy, radiation. It's also about the people themselves. So the doctors, nurses, surgeons, the support teams, all of those individuals are helping not only the cancer patient, but their families navigate a very new reality. I am also personally a cancer survivor, and oncology came into my life very fast and furious. I'd been having some weird symptoms for like many years, and no one really paid a lot of attention. Doctors told me, like, you have vitamin D deficiency, or like, you need more sleep, you need more exercise. And then I was establishing care in my new community. My husband and I had moved. And long story short, the doctor said, like, I don't know necessarily what's going on. She referred me to a neurology team for an MRI with the hopes to rule out anything big. And I went and did my MRI and then learned that I had a tumor, and it was a tumor in my brain. So that's when things escalated really quickly. And I was referred then into the oncology world to a neuro-oncologist and a neurosurgeon, which was obviously very terrifying. But the people on that oncology team provided recommendations and a lot of explanations in like a very kind, supportive way, while still being like very prompt and direct of like, need to do X, Y, or Z for your options. I followed all of the recommendations because I didn't really want to die. So I just kind of went with that and felt like that was a better option than having a pity party for myself. But needless to say, oncology was able to change my life. So I'm very grateful like for those teams that exist. And that's kind of why I started to kind of figure out and look at like, how can I help give back to the cancer community? And then I crossed paths with Kristy, and now we've been working together, and it's very exciting.
Yes. So from your experience, because you've been with a team, then
Mhm.
Kristy has been familiar with that. What's often missing between the medical treatment and the daily life? Where do patients usually feel the most lost or supported during the whole treatment?
What's often missing isn't the treatment plan, it's the implementation of the plan in real life. Oncology is highly advanced, but it's designed around a diagnosis and intervention. What doesn't fully account for is how the patient is supported and navigating daily life while going through that treatment. That's where we constantly see patients unsupported. They're managing real physiological shifts, changes in digestion, appetite, energy, their sleep patterns, stress response, but they're left without a clear, supported way to respond to those changes. So they're left asking themselves, like, How do I eat when I don't feel good? How do I move when my energy is unpredictable? Or how do I support my body without overdoing it? And these aren't minor concerns. They directly influence how someone tolerates treatment, how they recover between their cycles, and how stable they feel overall. And that's the gap that we're really trying to focus on. We want to help patients understand what's going on in their body and how to respond in a structured, practical way. Without that layer in place, patients are often expected to navigate the most demanding part of their care on their own. They don't just need to be told what's happening, they need to be shown how to move through it. And that's exactly the space we're trying to support here.
Yes, because you're very right about that, Kristy, because the treatment in itself is already challenging, right? Like example, if you do chemo, they said that the body's really hot, for example. Some have to go surgery. They have to go through a lot of fear. Then I mean, they're usually just focused on implementing the treatment, but on the supportive side, that's where it's lacking because there's a lot of patients. So these things are really very true for most people, not just for the patient, but also for the family as well. So
Absolutely.
yes, yes. So when someone is going through the treatment, based on your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges happening in the body that people might not fully understand? Especially, I think Sammi knows this because she has gone through the treatment herself. Sammi, what do you think?
Yeah. So obviously, every cancer treatment is different, which is good in the sense of that it is client centered in that piece of it. But when somebody goes through cancer treatment, it's not always just the cancer that's being targeted. If we're doing chemo, I mean, that's essentially our body taking on a medication that is very strong and has a lot of, side effects and things like that. So the whole body is essentially going through heavy duty change as well as like trying to reset itself a little bit. But most of the treatments, right, are designed to attack like the fast growing cells, tumors, cancer related things. Cancer cells grow really quickly, which is great when we think about like the treatment piece of it and how the medications can attack those quickly growing cells and hopefully reduce and or terminate them between like medication, radiation, surgery, whatever everyone has to experience. But there's other important cells in the body, right? Like our hair, our stomach lining, our skin, our immune system, like all of those systems are also impacted. And I feel like a lot of times doctors don't do a great job of explaining those pieces of it or those side effects that come as a result of some of those like heavy duty treatments. So that's sometimes why, depending on what kind of chemo you're doing, people lose their hair or specific like radiation things, feeling constantly tired, kind of like Kristy mentioned earlier, getting sick more easily, having changes in our appetites, our digestion, and then our mental health is also impacted and a lot of times kind of set aside because our brain is definitely in a place of survival mode. So a lot of those mental health pieces are kind of dismissed or ignored by ourselves because we just want to survive in that moment. There is a huge shift within our immune system, kind of like I mentioned. So chemotherapy in particular lowers our body's defense mechanisms, which then causes us to be immune compromised, which means something as simple as like the common cold can hit significantly harder. So we're also more intentional about who we can see or who we can be around and things like that. Energy is another big one that I had mentioned. It was for me, for sure. People often describe it as like a fatigue that we can't necessarily fix by just like taking a nap or like getting some rest. It's just like a deeper tired that's kind of present all the time. And part of that is because our body is using so much energy to try to work with the medication, but also heal and repair and like keep up with the stress that a treatment is putting on our bodies, as well as like, again, our own anxieties and concerns that are like kind of lingering around and waiting for the time that like we can set aside to pay attention to those. Hormones are also things that change, especially depending on the type of cancer people have. But in general, our hormones affect a lot of things, right? Our mood, our sleep, memory, focus. People often refer to chemo brain, and that is really just like it feels like things are happening in our brain, but they're slower and foggier, and there's not really anything you can do about it. It just is a side effect of some of the chemo. And then there's kind of the more invisible side of it, which is, inflammation and like the cellular repair, the way that our bodies really trying to rebalance itself like day in and day out. And I think that's where a lot of the things that like Kristy shares in relation to like gut health and like digestion and those pieces can be really, really helpful. So while on the outside, it looks like someone's like just going through treatment, inside their body, there's an enormous amount of work that our bodies are doing every single day. And it's a really long and exhausting battle in treatment itself. And then there's a whole nother journey that starts when you complete treatment related to kind of feeling normal, feeling like allowing yourself to feel the fear that you felt when you were sick, but also now when you're a survivor, the fear and the uncertainty of like, could it come back? Those types of concerns. And when you transition from active cancer treatment to more of like survivor or like stabilization side of it, there's less people on the oncology team around. You have less appointments, you have less contact with the oncologists, nurses, social workers, those people who during active treatment are supportive from the medical side. As Kristy mentioned, there's still other pieces of that that are missing in the real life. But then when you transition to that next step as well, there's a lot of personal work that starts. And when you transition to that survivor piece or the stabilization piece, and that's also kind of part of this hub that we're creating so that people feel supported throughout all of it.
Because as you said, when you are undergoing treatment, you have a chemo brain. It's like you are cellular tiredness and then on a survival mode. And then after the treatment, if you survive them, you are like left on a battlefield alone and confused. So it's really something that can also be overwhelming for any cancer patient, because I have my aunt who is also a cancer survivor. And I agree with you, Sammi, that even if she's been cancer-free for years, she has to go to MRI every year. And every time she goes through that, she's suddenly having anxiety, because you will never know. You will never know what will happen next. Sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's discovered something, and then they're gonna do a certain test again, and they will say it's safe. So you are living on an uncertain situation, and the medical team will just focus on the treatment side. But on the daily life, that's where the challenge is. Because as far as we know, when you have cancer, you should also be having a good mental health, because anything that is in the brain, if you're keeping having negative thoughts, it will also affect your health. And for your cancer, there's a chance that it might come back just simply because your mental health is suffering. Sammi, Kristy, for someone listening who feels overwhelmed right now and unsure where to start, how can you guide people through this more structured, supportive way that you are building without adding pressure to the patients and including their family as well?
The first thing we do is remove the pressure to do everything at once. When someone starts to feel overwhelmed, it's because they're given too much without a clear way to prioritize or apply it. So we don't want to start with intensity. We want to start with structure. And inside the Beyond the Diagnosis program, everything is broken down into phases that match what the body is actually going through during treatment. That allows us to meet someone where they are, rather than them to expect them to operate at full capacity when their system is under so much stress. From there, we focus on key areas that make the biggest difference in day-to-day life: supporting digestion, stabilizing energy, helping the nervous system come out of that constant stress mode. But the way we do it actually matters. Instead of giving a long list of rigid rules, we provide clear, simple framework: what to focus on, what it might look like in real life, and how to adjust based on where their body is responding, so they aren't left guessing. And that's the biggest piece. They're not just doing everything, they're doing the right thing at the right time in a manageable way. When there's structure, there's clarity. And when there's clarity, the body isn't fighting this constant stress on top of everything else. So the goal isn't to add more, it's to organize what matters, simplify the process, and support people in a way that feels doable in their current capacity. That's why we guide people through it without adding pressure. That's where consistency and real progress start to build. So we really just want to take that stress level out and give them a clear picture of what your body is doing and how to meet your body in that moment.
Okay. So, Kristy, this platform that you're making. I think you mentioned to me that you're giving it to centers. You're partnering with centers, right?
Yes, that's our goal, is to get in there and create that bridge, because it's not the providers and their team, it's not their fault that they don't have time to really dive deep into what your body is going through on this level. So we want to get in there and we want to teach people the physiological side of what your body is going through and how to meet it exactly where it is, and not put it on, well, you know what, Jane is in this, she's doing really great, and I'm 3 steps back and we're in the same spot. So we want to focus on helping people where they are.
So it's more like a face-to-face kind of approach. It's not an online approach, or is it a hybrid?
So what we built are self-paced courses, but we're in there daily to hold their hand and help them with their needs. We also want to put on webinars and really just educate, because that's the biggest thing, because people are left without that education. And then it just adds more stress on them because they feel like they've got to fix that gap themselves. You're so stressed. You don't need to be out there Googling or trying to figure this out on your own. We're here to do that for you.
And I think it's also important, like, we're able to get feedback of, this is an area that, the beyond the diagnosis needs, or this is a webinar that we're interested in learning more about. And then we're able to help provide that based on like our expertise in relation to it.
Yeah, and I think the advantage of doing it in a hybrid type is that there are times that they are sick and they just want to stay at home. And so this online part will cater that. And then the face-to-face one is something that we also need, because we all need interaction, especially in this very challenging time. So I'm so proud of both of you to do these things, the face-to-face one and the online education. So congrats on that, Sammi and Kristy. And if there is one thing that I want to add, what would you want every cancer patient to understand about their body and their healing journey that often gets overlooked?
What I would want every patient to understand is their body is not working against them. It's adapting to a very real level of stress. Many of the symptoms patients are experiencing, like fatigue, appetite change, digestive shifts, emotional fluctuations, those aren't random, and they're not a sign that something's wrong. It's the body actively adapting to treatment demands and attempting to maintain an internal balance while under significant stress. When that's not understood, that just creates unnecessary fear and secondary guessing. The other piece that often gets overlooked is healing isn't just about treatment itself. It's about the body and how it responds between treatments. Small, consistent things matter. How to nourish your body, manage your energy, regulate your stress, and how you allow recovery. Those aren't secondary. Those influence someone's tolerance of treatment and how they rebuild afterwards. Patients are rarely shown how to work with their body in that way. Without clear framework, patients tend to overextend themselves, or they can withdraw entirely. So what Sammi and I are trying to do is shift that understanding. Your body isn't fragile. It's very responsive. And when support is consistent, the body responds in a more stable, predictable way. And that's where healing starts, and less chaotic and more guided.
And I think too, a lot of times when people complete treatment and they don't have any like guidance or any other like foundation related to it, there's this belief of like, oh, I just have to get back to normal. And there isn't really necessarily a way to get back to like the old normal. It's instead creating what that new normal is, utilizing the things that, Kristy shares in relation to digestion and like how are we eating the right way and how are we paying attention to what our body's telling us. Because it's so resilient, we should listen to it. And then also being able to allow ourselves to accept whatever changes might have come as a result of not being able to get back to what normal once was and creating what the new one is.
I think the most beautiful thing about your partnership is that Kristy has been really working between the gut and the brain connection. So she has always been good at how to manage the gut issues and how to nourish it. And you, Sammi, as a therapist, helps on the very emotional and the mental side of things, which is something that is definitely needed in these times, not just on the treatment side, but also after that. So thank you so much for this, creating this program, this space that is very helpful for cancer patients, because for most cancer patients, it feels like I have cancer, it's the end of the world. Yes. And especially right now, one that I recently know is a stage 3 lung cancer. So it really feels like the end already. But you know, anything can happen. You can make whatever happens with this proper education. You can live your life in a better way rather than just living on constant fight mode, survival mode, stress mode, and all that. Thank you so much. And I'm really praying for your success. And I'm sure you can help a lot of people undergoing cancer treatment. Thank you, Sammi and Kristy, for the great job that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you learned something valuable today that can support your healing journey. If you love this episode, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating and a follow of the 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 podcast. It would really help us reach more people who needs this message. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye!